Thought I would quickly weigh in on an issue that is of popular interest. I think it was yesterday, UFC cut man Stitch Duran, who we're all used to seeing in the UFC, was fired apparently because of criticisms that he made about this last year's deal between the UFC and Reebok, promotional deal. And prior to this deal with Reebok, we were used to seeing fighters accept advertising contracts with whoever they felt like, right? And so a fighter would come out with, whoever's logos and trademarks on them and such, on their gear, on their clothing, and whoever they decide they wanted to represent. And some represented themselves. I know BJ Penn, very quickly turned to just representing his own company when he fought. But through the Reebok deal, this year's Reebok deal, basically, how I understand it is that now every fighter in the UFC advertises for Reebok, and that's it, right? So they're not allowed to take their own advertising contracts with other corporations and these kind of things. They're not allowed to wear other people's logos when they fight and advertise for the other groups. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. And that deal has come under a lot of criticism by some of the fighters, who want the freedom to make their own deals with advertisers. And it's come under, criticism of others like Stitch Duran, who's not a fighter, but who feels like in making that deal, the UFC kind of overstepped their boundaries in terms of their relationships with fighters. If they cared about fighters, they would allow fighters to negotiate their own advertising deals, not sticking with Reebok. As not a fighter and in no way associated with the UFC, just as a member of the general public who will sometimes watch the UFC fights, my concern with the Reebok deal is this. In the past, when you watch the UFC, you could learn about emerging companies in the martial arts. You could learn about companies that were selling new gear, or new clothing, new tools for training. And certainly myself, through watching the old UFCs in the past and looking at what the fighters were advertising, I was able to find some equipment that was of high quality from little known companies, or not necessarily little known, but known only within the martial arts community, perhaps, companies I probably wouldn't have bought from if I didn't see them advertised by UFC fighters and look into what they were making. So I find that, this also helps when fighters are wearing brands from companies that aren't so large yet in the martial arts industry. They're helping those companies grow, right? And they're bringing more competition, and more competition between the companies that create martial arts training equipment and gear is going to lead to better and better products, right? This is all the basic tenets of capitalism and such. By making one, UFC is the mixed martial arts, the top mixed martial arts organization, right? Fighting organization. And by them making a deal with just Reebok and forcing all their fighters to wear Reebok's brand, that is basically like putting a monopoly into a capitalistic system. And so I think what we end up with in the long run is going to be a detriment. It's going to be a detriment to the fighters. It's going to be a detriment to the industry, to martial artists who are hoping to see better and better training equipment gear invented and brought into the market. Reeboks, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to buy anything from Reeboks ever again, as long as they have this deal with the UFC. That's going to be my stand. I have bought in the past, I bought some martial arts shoes through Reeboks. I don't think I bought any gis or anything like that through them, but I know I've bought shoes. Haven't bought anything of theirs for a long time, so it's probably not going to hurt their business for me not using them. But I'll tell you that I won't use Reeboks as long as they're in this deal with the UFC, because I believe that what they're doing there is a detriment to the industry, by trying to capture, the top stage for advertising and keep it only to themselves with no competitors, and insisting on that, then yeah, it can only reduce the quality of the future that we might have in the industry of martial arts training tools and training gear, clothing and such. So yeah, that's my perspective on it. I just thought I'd throw that out there really quick. I think it's sad that people are getting fired and stuff for criticizing it, because it needs to be criticized. It's, even though it might be financially a great deal, in terms of the martial arts and its future, it's a bad deal. So that's my opinion. That's where I stand on it.